Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Tom Rivera, and I retired as the Associate Dean for Undergraduate Studies. And today we are at the Fowle Library, room 4005, and our guest this afternoon, who's added to our oral history project of South Colton, is Miss Terry Constant. And Terry, welcome. Welcome, and thank you very much for being with us this afternoon.
My pleasure.
We
Thank
truly
you.
appreciate it. And also, part of our committee is Mr. Henry Vasquez. And again, Henry, thanks for undertaking this project with us. As you know, we've been planning this for over a year now, and it's finally coming to a fruition. And the other part of the member that's part of our team is Mr. Frank Acosta, also retired like Henry. And Frank is doing the video taping of our interview this afternoon. So again, Terry, welcome to the session. And what I'd like to do, Terry, is just talk about your dad, because your dad was quite a person in South Colton. He contributed tremendously to many projects in South Colton. He influenced many people in South Colton, and he was one of the people that made things work in South Colton. So could you tell us a little bit about your dad? Where was he born?
Well, let me start out by saying that as a family, we didn't know very much about what my dad did outside the home. So fortunately, when he passed, he left some paperwork among his papers, which, he didn't really have an office at the home, but he did collect certain things, and he kept them over the years. And in that way, I began to understand what it was that he did and what he was involved in. So my knowledge of him working outside the home or being involved in the community comes primarily from the paperwork that I read. So what I did was I composed a sort of a small family history, plus going into some detail as to what he was actually involved in outside the community, as far as I could tell from the paperwork.
Yes.
So probably what I would like to do is start out with a little bit of the family history.
Please.
And tell you where I think we came from. And in talking to my Aunt Mary, more than anyone else, she was able to give me little snippets of where they came from. And my recollection is that they came from the Jalisco area of Mexico. They originally came, I imagine, through Arizona, by route of Arizona, into California. And it was sort of like a family migration, because it was his grandfather, I think, and his parents, and aunts and uncles on the Delgado side of the family that came to both Colton and to East Highlands, which most of the families, we are related to many of the families in East Highlands, and we also have family in San Bernardino, which are actually the sons and daughters of the original settlers of the East Highlands. And they primarily came looking for work. And the area that they first worked in was in the citrus workers in the orange groves, picking the oranges and working that way. And I'm sure you are aware of the fact that it's very backbreaking work. And over the years, my dad suffered from a lot of extreme back pain as a result of that. And they also went to the fields out like in Fresno and Central California. But in any case, my dad was born in Colton in the family home on N Street. And I believe that several of his sisters and his brothers were also born in Colton. I don't know that anybody ever went to the hospital at that time.
How many brothers and sisters did he have?
Well, let me check, because I had to write everything down, because I can't
so
depend
I
on
threw
my
you
brain.
off script. Huh?
Well, no, I tried to follow your script, and I think I did pretty good. Anyway, what I found was a little book that it was kind of like a sort of a diary, and it wasn't very long, but it did document where my grandfather how old he was when he died and how old people were when they passed away. And so there was the original, my grandfather or great-grandfather, it was a memorial to him. His name was Julio Padilla, and he died in May of 1890. And then there was Simona Padilla, who died in 1888. She was 18 years old. And there was Victoriano Delgado, who died in 1929, more or less. But my dad's father, who was Julio Padilla, he was born in 1872. He got married when he was 25, and he died in 1897. No, 1914 actually. My dad's mother, who was Isiquia Delgado Padilla, was born in November 1876, and she passed in 1925 in Colton. There was 3 brothers, Francisco and Nicolas, well, including my dad, Manuel. And there was 5 sisters, who were Maria, Gertrudis, Carmen, Ramona, and Maria del Refugio Padilla. And that was the extent of the brothers and sisters. Buried in the Agua Mansa Cemetery, which is the original cemetery in Colton.
Your grandparents were buried in the Agua Mansa?
Yes. Victoriano Delgado was buried there. That was the father of Isiquia. Julio Padilla, who is the father, Isiquia, the mother, and then 2 daughters, Carmen and Ramona.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's basically what I took from reading the little diary. Your next question was, tell me about your dad. His school experience, he graduated from Colton High School, and he went to Valley College.
What year did you graduate from Colton High School?
It doesn't say. It didn't
Okay.
say. I could backtrack, but
Mm-hmm.
it takes a little extra work. His work experiences were as a citrus worker, picking the oranges. He worked for Portland Cement Company. He was a manager of the Colton projects for San Bernardino County. He was a union laborer. He joined the union at one point, and he worked for Kennedy Pipe Company in Barstow, in Yermo. And then in August of 1959, he was elected financial secretary-treasurer for Hod Carriers and Laborers Local 783.
Here in San Bernardino?
Yeah, until his retirement. His community involvement, from what I could gather from the papers that I read, involved, he was a member of the Congress of Community Clubs, and I'm sure people have mentioned that to you, have they?
They have, but what do you know about the Congress?
What I know about the Congress, and it was taken from a letterhead that I found, and he actually created the logo for the letterhead. So it included the Latin American Civic Club, the American Legion Fidel Hernandez Post 754, the Mercury Athletic and Social Club, the Latin American Democratic Club, the Woodrow Wilson PTA, and the Scoutmasters Boy Scout Troop 45. And the youth groups included Conquistadores
Right.
Youth Club, Los Solteros Youth Club, which was a boys' club, Las Solteras Youth Club, girls' club, and the Latin Teen Drill Team. And he actually prepared the constitutions for each of those organizations, and he included objectives for the various youth groups. He also prepared the constitution for Los Latinos Social Club in Redlands in 1965, and the San Bernardino County Civic Association in 1965, which was a political organization. And then he also, there was a youth club in Tucson, Arizona, called the Empress Youth Club. And the Congress of Community Clubs was the sponsoring organization for that group. And then there was the People's Committee, which was created in 1976 in Colton to support political candidates. And as far as I know, I'm sure there was other organizations, but I'm just aware of these because that's what the paperwork showed me. In terms of his political involvement, I'm not that knowledgeable about his political involvement, but what I do know is that he was involved in helping various people in their aspirations for political office. I couldn't name them for you, but I know that he was involved in the efforts to have Pete Lukey Sr. To be a candidate for the mayor of Colton. And as you know, that kind of went down the drain 2 or 3 days before the election because of a rumor that was presented to the newspapers that said that he really wasn't a citizen. So that was very disappointing for a lot of people. But at the same time, my dad helped Mr. Lukey prepare speeches for to be presented to the city council regarding various issues that were of concern to the people of South Colton. And one of the big ones was that apparently there was continued delays in the construction of the underpass for the railroad on what is now La Cadena. And so he was very vocal about that, and my dad helped him vocalize those things, as well as the delays that they had for the what they called the community center at Veterans Memorial Park.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently there had been a lot of vandalism because the work was so slow in getting done, so that he helped him prepare a statement, demanding to know why there had been such delays. I also know that he was involved in organizing support for Ruben Ayala,
Mm-hmm.
for I believe was senator in California.
Yes, Ruben Ayala from Chino.
Yes, and I know that, but I don't know anything about what process he went through in order to help him.
Right. Ruben was on the Board of Supervisors for San Bernardino County. And then after that, he had aspirations to be a senator for California. And your dad was instrumental in helping him in his campaign in the Colton area.
One of the reasons I know that he was involved with him was because my son James went to Our Lady of Guadalupe School in San Bernardino, and the nuns organized a field trip to Sacramento. And as they were touring the capital, apparently Senator Ayala came out of his office and asked for James. And he said, "I know your grandfather," and they talked a little bit, but I guess that James was a little bit surprised at
But that was a wonderful experience
Oh, yeah.
for him. Yeah,
yeah, it was.
It made going to Sacramento a memorable memory.
Oh yeah, and he talks about that every once in a while when we start talking about what we call
Grandpa.
the old days. Yeah.
Now, did James call him Grandpa or?
Yes, he did. When James was born, we lived in my parents' home for a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and then over the years, in going to school in San Bernardino, there was a lot of connection with my dad at my dad's home, and so he got to know his grandchildren, not real well, but especially the boys, who was James and Louis Rodriguez. He used to take them with him when he went visiting the bars, and he would introduce them to whoever he knew, and he would say, "Okay, this is a good guy, that's a bad guy." And so James was telling me, I wish I could have remembered the names, but of course, he was too young to realize what was happening.
In the house that your dad lived in, is that the original house that he was born and raised in?
Yes, it was the neighborhood was very consistent. It just stayed the same while I was growing up. So it was his home, the house he was born in.
Yeah, that was on N Street.
Yes,
On N Street.
and there was my grandmother and grandfather's house on my mom's side. Then there was our home, which is the home that he built, with help. And then the Contreras, the Beltrans were down the block, the Serranos, the Pimentels. We all grew up together. And the N Street was our playground. And for us, as his children, we were limited in how far we could go or not.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but we got to develop relationships.
Well, you were around the corner from 7th and 6th Street. You know, 7th, and you were in the middle there on N Street.
Yes.
And around the corner was La Calle Siete. And the Calle Siete was the Broadway of South Colton.
Yes, it was. And I heard some stories, and not really stories, but a little bit of history where South Colton was a place all its own. It had its own theater, it had its own markets, it had its own entertainment areas, movie houses. So it was very protected in that regard.
Uh-huh.
And so, you know, going outside of that area probably was, I wouldn't say not allowed, but people were restricted because of, you know, discrimination. And because it was felt in the schools and it was felt in other places as well. So it was a community within a community.
Yeah, and all the happenings, like your cousin Eddie Castorena says, all the happenings happened there on La Calle Siete, and then
Yes.
down the street from you was a church, which was
Yes.
also quite close.
Right, yes. So it was, I imagine it was quite a hopping place, especially during the war. So,
During World War II.
yes.
Okay.
Okay. I know that my dad was involved in the Fiestas Patrias. He was in the organizing committee for many years, and at one point served as president. And he used to write the minutes for the meetings that they used to have. And this when the fiestas took place on the corner of 8th and N Streets, which is now La Cadena.
Yeah, which is down the street from your house.
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh.
And so it was a happening place, you know, with the parades taking place every year going in front of the house. And I was involved in many of the royal courts, supposedly. You know, they would plot me in and get me dressed up and sit me there.
Did you give any speeches?
Actually, I did.
Tell us about that
in my teen
experience.
years. Verde, Blanco, Colorado, right? And you talk about the I can't remember. Anyway, it was a group, and it was initially the Girl Scouts group that we had there in Colton. You know, it was Sylvia Castorena, Mary Lou Vasquez, many of the girls. You know, I can't remember all the names. Mary Lou Castro, I think I mentioned her already. And there was about a group of about 10 or 11 girls. And my Aunt Tula used to bring us all together, and she would teach us the poems for the 15th and 16th, and also the dances.
You know, I didn't know we had a Girl Scout troop in South Colton.
Oh yeah, the leaders.
Tell me about that.
The leaders were my Aunt Cuca Refugio, Esther Castorena, and I think Esther Beltran was involved for a short while. And it was for a few years, and they documented, you know, who went, who came, who was involved. You know, we went on little field trips and things like that. And it was a good time. And it was.
Can you remember any of the members that were part of the group?
Yeah, the names that I just mentioned. And I actually have a list of all the names, but I didn't bring it with me. But I do have all the names of the girls that were.
Give me some names again. I'm an old guy, so I don't remember things.
Mary Lou Castro, Sylvia Castorena, Emily Rodriguez, I think one of her cousins, Stella Ochoa, Henrietta Lopez. Well, that's 6 people already, so that's more than half.
Well, most of them were in my class.
Oh, they were?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Well, I knew you from the gas station.
Oh, that's right. I used to work at Henry's gas station,
Yes.
which is also a couple of blocks from your house.
Yes.
Yeah, and your dad gassed up at our gas
Yeah.
station.
I used to gas up there too because I thought you were cute.
Oh.
But you know who also worked there was Tony Bustos.
Tony Bustos. Was
I
he
had
a cousin of yours?
I had a crush on him. Well, you know, talking about cousins, my mom used to watch very carefully who we went out with because she wouldn't let us go out with anybody that she thought was related to us. And there was a few